I wasn't supposed to be there that late. The cafe had closed an hour ago, the lights dimmed to a warm orange glow, but she was still at her corner table, fingers curled around a chipped mug like she was holding on to more than coffee. Her name was Mara. Mid-forties, dark hair streaked with silver she didn't bother to hide, a soft scarf draped over her shoulders even in the mild spring night. I'd been wiping the counters slowly, pretending to finish closing duties. Truth was, I was waiting for her to leave, or maybe waiting for a reason to speak. "Long day?" I asked finally. My voice sounded younger than I wanted, like I hadn't rehearsed it enough in my head. She glanced up, the kind of look that travels through you before you're ready. "Too long," she said, then looked back at the mug. Her thumb kept circling the rim. "You don't have to stay on my account." "I'm not." I flipped the cloth over my shoulder and moved closer, though there was no reason. "I like the quiet after hours." She smiled, not the polite kind she gave strangers, but a small, tired curve. "So do I." We didn't talk for a while. Only the hum of the fridge and the hiss of the espresso machine cooling down. Outside, drizzle made the streetlights blur. She was sitting in the reflection of the window, and I caught myself watching her reflection more than her face. When she finally spoke again, her voice was softer. "Do you ever feel like you're always being watched?" I laughed under my breath. "Me? No. Invisible, maybe." Her eyes lifted to mine, and for a second it felt like she was reading every word I hadn't said. "You're not invisible." She reached for her bag, then stopped, fingers trembling just enough for me to notice. "Promise you won't tell anyone?" I blinked. "About what?" "Just promise," she said, and there was something in her tone, half a dare, half a plea. "I promise," I said before thinking. She looked at me then, really looked. The room seemed to tilt around that gaze. I could smell her perfume, faint and complicated, like it had been there all day but only now decided to appear. Her hand slid from the mug to the edge of the table, closer to me, a small movement that felt enormous. "You're too young to understand," she whispered. "Try me." My voice cracked slightly. A pause. She stared at my mouth, then away, then back. "This is a bad idea," she said, but didn't move. I leaned against the table, my palms flat on the wood. "Then why does it feel like we're already in it?" Her lips parted as if to answer, but nothing came out. Instead, she stood slowly, scarf slipping off her shoulder. She was so close I could see the tiny freckles at the base of her throat. I could have stepped back. I didn't. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, eyes darting to the door, then back to me. "If I do this," she began, but her voice fell into a whisper I couldn't catch. The rain outside grew louder, a sudden burst against the glass. In that sound, she reached up and kissed me, not tentative, but quiet, like it had been waiting there all along. And then, just as quickly, the cafe doorbell chimed. Someone was coming in. The bell over the cafe door snapped us apart. I stumbled a step back, wiping my palms on my apron though they were dry. A delivery guy poked his head in, apologized for being late, then left a box of paper cups by the counter. The door shut again and the rain swallowed the street. Mara stayed standing, eyes fixed on the window like nothing had happened. Her scarf had slipped completely to the floor. I picked it up and held it out, but she didn't take it right away. "You shouldn't," she began, then stopped, pressing her fingers to her forehead. "I'm sorry." "I'm not." I tried to make my voice steady. "You don't have to be sorry." That earned me a sharp look, something between warning and curiosity. "You don't know what you're stepping into." She finally took the scarf and wrapped it back around herself, tighter than before. I almost asked her what she meant, but part of me already knew. She wore a simple gold band on her right hand, not her left, but I'd heard the rumors from other customers. A long separation, a teenage daughter who sometimes came in on Saturdays, an ex who still called at odd hours. "I've been alone a long time," she said quietly, as if reading my thoughts. "Alone in a way that doesn't look like loneliness from the outside." I wiped an invisible spot on the counter. "I know that kind of alone." My own words surprised me. I hadn't talked about my life since my father left when I was 12, or the relationships since then that lasted weeks but never stuck. She gave a small, almost pained smile. "You're 20, right?" 21 next month." Her eyes flicked toward me and then down to her mug. "My daughter is 22. The sentence hung there. She didn't have to explain why what had just happened was risky. She didn't have to explain anything at all. I could feel it in the way her shoulders squared, the way her throat moved when she swallowed. I wanted to tell her I wasn't some kid with a crush. But even thinking it made me feel like a kid with a crush. She reached for her bag. "I shouldn't come here so late anymore," she murmured. Something in my chest tightened. "Then don't," I said. "Come earlier. Or somewhere else." Her fingers paused on the zipper. "Why would you want that?" "Because when you walked in, the room changed. Because you're the first person who's looked at me like I'm not invisible." I didn't say any of it. Instead, I reached across the counter and touched her wrist, barely, just 2 fingers over the pulse before I pulled back. She didn't move away. The rain outside softened to a hush, and for a heartbeat we stood like that, her looking at my hand, me looking at her eyes, both of us not saying the thing we were already inside of. The next evening she came earlier, just like I'd asked. 6:30, still daylight outside, but the cafe already thinning out. I'd been watching the door between orders, trying not to. When she walked in, her hair was damp from the drizzle, scarf clinging to her neck. She chose the back booth instead of her usual table. It felt deliberate, a place to hide. I poured her coffee without asking and brought it over. "You moved." "I didn't want to be in the window tonight," she said. "Too visible." Her phone buzzed on the table. She flipped it over before the screen lit. I caught a glimpse of a name. Daniel. No heart emoji, just a name. "You're married," I said before I could stop myself. She looked up, eyes sharp. "Separated. Not divorced." "Not that it matters." It mattered. The word separated sat between us like a third person. She lowered her voice. "We can't keep whatever this is. People will talk." I leaned on the booth too close. "Then don't give them something to talk about." Her laugh was small and bitter. "You think it's that simple?" Before I could answer, the front door chimed. My roommate Jay walked in, earbuds dangling, scanning the counter. "Yo," he said, grinning. "Got any leftovers?" Mara stiffened. I straightened and tried to look casual. "I'm working." Jay's gaze flicked from me to Mara. "Hi. Haven't seen you before." Mara nodded, polite smile, but her fingers clutched her mug like it might break. I hustled Jay a muffin and hissed, "Go sit over there." He arched an eyebrow but went to a corner stool, scrolling his phone. When I turned back, Mara was staring at me with something between panic and apology. "He knows," she whispered. "No," I said. "He doesn't know anything." Her breath came out shaky. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." "Afraid of being seen with me?" "Afraid of wanting to be," she said, so low I almost missed it. We both froze. The hiss of the espresso machine filled the space where words should have been. I slid into the booth across from her, knees bumping hers under the table. "You could leave right now," I said. "Pretend nothing happened." She closed her eyes. "I've been pretending for years." Her phone buzzed again. This time she let it ring. She pressed a hand to her temple, then to my hand on the table, just for a second. Warm. Electric. Gone. Jay called from the counter. "You closing soon?" Mara stood quickly, pulling her scarf tight. "I can't stay." I stood too, blocking the edge of the booth without meaning to. Mara! She looked up at me, eyes wet but steady. Stop saying my name like that! And then she slipped past me toward the door, leaving her untouched coffee behind. For 2 days she didn't come in. I kept wiping the same counter until the grain of the wood imprinted on my palm, telling customers we were out of things we weren't. Jay teased me about being jumpy, but I didn't tell him why. On the 3rd evening the door pushed open hard enough to rattle the bell. Mara stood there, hair loose, eyes already searching for me. She wasn't wearing her scarf. We need to talk, she said, voice clipped. I untied my apron, ignoring Jay's raised eyebrows. Out back, I murmured, and led her through the narrow hallway past the stockroom to the alley behind the cafe. Rain slicked the pavement, a single bulb buzzed above us. She stayed just inside the doorway, arms folded. Daniel showed up at my apartment last night. My stomach dipped. The ex? He's not my ex yet. He's angry. Suspicious. She laughed once, sharp. And I hate that I'm afraid of him finding out about you. I'm not a secret, I said, even though we both knew I was. Her eyes flashed. You're 21. You're my daughter's age. What are we doing? I stepped closer, enough to smell the rain in her hair. Something real. She shook her head. You don't know what real costs. A gust of wind slammed the door against the wall. I reached to steady it, my hand brushed hers. Neither of us moved it away. Tell me to stop, I said quietly. Right now. If you don't want this, tell me. Her lips parted but no words came. Instead she pressed her forehead to the door frame, shoulders trembling. I'm losing control, she whispered. I felt something break open in me, jealousy, fear, all of it. Do you think I haven't been? Every time Jay asks where I'm going, every time someone calls you at night. I stopped, biting down on the rest. I can't stand the idea of you going back to him. She turned then, eyes wet. This isn't fair to you. Then make it fair, I said, voice rougher than I meant. Choose. She stared at me like she was memorizing my face. If I choose you, my life changes. My daughter, my work, everything. The bulb above us flickered. In the sudden shadow, she reached out and caught my shirt in her fist, pulling me a fraction closer. Her breath hitched, warm against my chin. I closed my eyes, waiting for her to either push me away or finish what she'd started weeks ago. But the alley door creaked open again behind us. Footsteps. Someone had followed. Mara's grip tightened on my shirt. Neither of us turned to see who it was. The footsteps behind us stopped. Mara? A woman's voice said. Mara froze. Her hand slid from my shirt as if it had burned her. I turned. A young woman stood in the doorway, hood pushed back, eyes wide. She looked like Mara, but younger, with a student's backpack slung over one shoulder. My stomach fell. I'd only seen a photo once on Mara's phone, but I knew. Lena, Mara whispered. Her daughter. Lena's gaze darted from her mother to me and back. What is this? She asked. Her voice was quiet but steady in a way that made it worse. Mara stepped forward. You weren't supposed to be here. I called you, Lena said, pulling out her phone. You didn't pick up. Then Jay texted me, said you were here. Her eyes flicked to me again. With him. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Jay, I didn't know she was your... Jay's voice came from the hallway. He looked stricken. I thought I was helping. Mara cut him off with a look. Enough. Silence stretched. The rain drummed against the dumpster. Lena's hands clenched on her straps. You told me you were done with Dad, she said to Mara. You told me you weren't seeing anyone. I'm not seeing. Mara began, then stopped. The truth stuck in her throat. Lena's expression cracked, something between disbelief and hurt. With him? She whispered. He's my age. I tried to speak, but the words tangled. We didn't plan, don't, Mara said sharply, without looking at me. The air was heavy with things unsaid. Jay backed into the cafe, muttering, I'm sorry, and disappeared. Mara reached for her daughter's arm. Lena, please. Lena stepped back. Does Dad know? No, Mara said quickly. Then I'm the first? Her laugh was small and shaking. You promised me after the separation, no secrets. Mara's voice cracked. I never meant for this, then end it. The words hung there like a verdict. Mara's shoulders dropped. She looked smaller suddenly, older. I felt like a piece of furniture in the alley, watching them. Mara, I said quietly. She turned her face toward me, eyes bright and torn. Go inside, she said. I didn't move. Please, she whispered. Lena stared at her mother. If you keep him, you lose me. Mara flinched, as if struck. That's not fair. Neither is this, Lena said, and then turned, walking out into the rain without looking back. Mara stood there, hand halfway raised, trembling. I stepped toward her, but she lifted her palm. Stop. The gesture wasn't angry, it was a plea. Her ring glinted under the flickering bulb. Everything just changed, she said. And then she slid down the doorframe, burying her face in her hands. We didn't speak for hours after that night. My phone stayed silent. Hers, I imagine, didn't. I worked the counter like a machine, pouring shots, wiping tables, waiting for something that wasn't coming. On the fourth evening, she appeared again. No scarf, no makeup. Just Mara. She stood in the doorway until every customer had left, then came to the counter. Can we talk? She asked. I nodded and led her to the back booth, the same one she'd hidden in before. She didn't sit. She stood with her hands flat on the table, looking down at the grain of the wood like it was a map. I told her the truth, she said. My heart kicked. Lena? She cried. She said she hated me. Then she said she didn't. She said she wanted me to be happy, but she couldn't stand the idea of me with someone her age. Mara laughed without humor. She's right. It's not fair to either of you. I swallowed. And Daniel? He called this morning. He knows now. Or at least suspects. She finally sat, her shoulders sagging. Everything I thought I was hiding isn't hidden anymore. For a moment neither of us spoke. The cafe was so quiet I could hear the cooler humming in the kitchen. I don't regret you, she said softly. But I regret the shadows we built around us. I reached across the table, palm up. Then stop hiding. She looked at my hand, then at me. It's not that simple. I'm not asking for simple, I said. I'm asking for honest. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. If I stay with you, I risk losing my daughter forever. If I walk away, I go back to a life I barely survived. Which one do you want me to choose? I didn't answer right away. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop, its headlights sliding across the windows. Choose what you can live with, I said at last. Not what looks right from the outside. She stared at me for a long time. Then, slowly, she slid her hand into mine. Her fingers were cold but steady. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, I said. We sat like that, holding hands across the sticky cafe table, no music, no words. Just the hum of the cooler, and the rain starting again. Finally she drew a breath. I told Lena I needed time. I told Daniel nothing. But I'm here. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a promise. It was the first honest thing we'd had in weeks. I squeezed her hand once, not letting go. Then we start from here. Her mouth trembled into the hint of a smile. Here, she repeated. The bus pulled away. The cafe felt both empty and full, like a door had opened we hadn't known existed. We closed the cafe early that night. No customers, no delivery trucks, no Jay hanging around. Just the two of us, and the smell of coffee grounds in the air. Mara sat at the counter instead of her usual table. Her coat was folded beside her, her hair still damp from the drizzle outside. She looked tired, but not guarded. "I talked to Lena again," she said quietly. "She came over this morning. We sat on the couch and didn't talk for a long time. Then she said she didn't hate me. She said she just needed space." I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. "She asked me if I loved you." Mara's fingers toyed with a sugar packet. "I didn't know what to tell her. Not because I don't know how I feel. Because I didn't know if you'd want me to." I set down the mug I was drying. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her I don't know where this is going. But I told her you make me feel alive again. And I asked her to trust me." Mara gave a small, uncertain laugh. "She said she'd try?" I came around the counter, stood beside her. "That's more than I expected." She looked up at me. "Daniel called, too. He wants to talk. About the divorce. About moving on." She drew a breath. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like apologizing for my life. We stood there, silent except for the hum of the fridge. I realized how much noise we'd been living under: secrecy, guilt, the sound of waiting for someone to find out. Now there was only quiet. "I'm not a secret anymore?" I asked softly. She reached out, fingers brushing the back of my hand. "You never were. I just treated you like one." Her touch lingered, slow and deliberate. "If you still want me," she said, "I'm here. Not hiding. Not pretending." I took her hand and squeezed it, feeling the tremor in both our fingers. "Then let's try. Not perfect. Not hidden. Just us." She let out a shaky breath and leaned her forehead against mine. "Just us." For a long moment we stayed like that, eyes closed, breathing the same air. The rain on the windows had softened to a mist. The street outside glowed with reflected light. It didn't feel like an ending or a beginning, just the first clear space we'd had in months. She pulled back enough to see my face. "We'll figure it out?" "We'll figure it out," I said. The bell over the door stayed silent. No interruptions. Just the two of us and a quiet room. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?